what is working right now to get listing appointments set. Welcome back to another episode of All or Nothing in Real Estate. I'm your host, Matt Smith, the founder of All or Nothing in Real Estate. This podcast, this brand is a movement to give back to this amazing industry that's given so much to me and my family. Guys, today I just had something on my heart and I wanted to share with you. I wanted to share a message that's relevant right now, that's winning in our business, that's making a big impact. That's something that I've learned diving back into the trenches, both as a leader and executing, operating alongside my team in right now, real time in this business. Before I dive into that, I just want to share, I've got some very, very special guests scheduled coming up soon. So you won't be stuck with me forever here. I hope you find these valuable, but I also have some very, very special guests I'm really looking forward to introducing you to, some people that are titans in the industry, that are experts in their field. We got some database management stuff. We got some leadership stuff. We got some recruiting stuff, some marketing stuff, some really, really good stuff coming up. So stay tuned. But back to today, I want to dive into a challenge that we are doing right now. Right now, in all these challenging times in the business, one of the things that I think a lot of agents are struggling with is, like, let's just use the NAR settlement as an example. What's going on with the NAR settlement? Well, that buyer's representation is changing. Sometimes compensation may be changing, and all of these changes. What about just the changes from the pandemic market to the market that we're in with the interest rates where they are? What about the inventory problems that we have in some parts of the country? And just all of this stuff compounded has just really restricted a lot of agents and a lot of success for teams, agents, brokerages. And we are very, very fortunate that we're thriving. We're having our best year ever. We've had our best month ever, and we are catching our stride, and we are getting a lot of momentum, a lot of great things happening for our organization, and very, very blessed for that. And I just kind of want to share what's working. One of the things I want to share specifically is a challenge that we're doing right now, and I want to keep this specific on this topic, is we are, because of the changes in the marketplace, we've decided to go all in on listings. And so today, what we're going to break down is what is working right now to get listing appointments set. So me personally, if you follow me on social, maybe you've seen this. I'm doing my best to share daily on kind of my strategies, tactics, results. But I committed to getting 30 listing appointments in the next 30 days. 30 listing appointments in 30 days. My team is also along for the ride, and collectively we've committed to over 200 listing appointments set in the next 30 days. So that's for the month of May. So as of recording this, it's about midway through the month, and we are at almost 60 listing appointments set. So we got a little bit of ground to make up. I'm personally sitting at 15 as of today on day 15. So I'm right on pace, but not giving up. I want to set more than 30. But anyway, breaking that down, I think that's a challenge that a lot of people are doing right now. My good friend and fellow great operator Ryan Young, that owns the seller lead generation lead nurture platform Fellow, which I highly recommend, has thrown this challenge. He did it himself personally and navigated his journey and recorded his journey so that we could all learn from him. And now he's sharing it through his community. And we wanted to participate to get some more momentum in our business. And so what is working right now to create listings? We're going to dive in. Before we talk about that, I think it's important to understand why are we focused on listings when all the changes are happening on the buyer side? Well, you've heard it over and over and over again. You have to list to last. Listings create leads. Listings create leverage. And so you have to list to last. Listings create leads, and listings create leverage. And the thing that we're worried about changing is on the buyer side of the business. If we own the listing side of the business, we're not as susceptible to that change. We're not as susceptible to that risk of whatever that unknown may or may not be. So I think it's really important that you're focusing on listings in today's marketplace, but it's a really, really tough going out there. One of the things that let me get tactical now. One of the things that we struggled with when we first made this a goal for ourselves was, how do we focus on listings in our database, right? So what I mean by that is, I think a lot of databases are set up to do, especially on teams similar to mine, are set up to do buyer conversion. right? And we're about 65% buyer heavy traditionally. That's just where we've lived. And I think a lot of teams live there. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to adjust it. And I wanted to find out, how can I navigate to actually work the seller side of the business intentionally and create a prospecting system, create a hand raising system so that we can actually proactively find out who are the sellers, who are the hand raisers, and predictably create listing side of the business like we can the buyer side of the business. And so one of the things that's very important, the very first step, it's kind of boring, but it's so important. Have your database set up. Your database is your most valuable asset. Why do I say that? There's stats out there that say 5% of your database will sell their home in the next 12 months. How many people do you have in your database? What is 5% of that number? That's how many homes that you already have the contact information for. You've already paid for the lead. You've already probably spoken to them that are going to sell their home in the next 12 months. How many of them are going to choose you? So when I heard that stat, I thought, man, we've got to change our strategy. And so the first strategy that we figured out was, I need to set up our database to where we know who in our database are homeowners, who in our database are seller hand raisers, not just a hand raiser, but who are specifically raised their hand in a seller's fashion. Not to say that a buyer lead isn't also a seller. A lot of times they are. But what if we were able to segment our database and set it up where we know we know every person in our database that is a homeowner, and we know their address, and we have them in a drip campaign through something like Fellow that consistently sends them messaging on their home's value, offering them CMAs, cash offer requests, those sorts of messaging that is specifically designed for sellers. And then we create hand raisers from the people that we know are homeowners. I say this all the time to my agents. Every homeowner is eventually a seller, right? So a lot of agents are struggling to find seller leads. And I know I work with some of the best. And like, I've talked to them with lead generation, and I've said, man, I need more seller leads. And they just laugh at me. Go talk to your lead generation platform right now and say, I want seller leads. They will laugh at you, or they'll say, hey, it's going to cost 10 times as much as a buyer lead. Like, that's just the reality. It's really, really tough to find them. So what I want to encourage you is, you already have them in your database. Let's say you had 10,000 people. 5% of those are going to list their home in the next 12 months. That's your database. That's your leads. So how can you do the messaging and the conversations and give them the value so that whenever they're ready to sell, that they choose you? So what I realized by setting that up is that there's a lot of opportunity for us to have the right conversation with the right people if we know that information. And so that's tip number one, is make sure your database is set up. Do you know who is a homeowner in your database, and do you know their address? Tip number two is, do you have some sort of system that is sending valuable information to those homeowners about the value of their biggest investment, which is their home, so they can stay in touch and in tune with the value of that asset? Third, what if you had a system in place that showed you whenever they click on the email, whenever they request the value, whenever they look for request a CMA, that you know that that person is interested in finding out more information? Now you can actually proactively work a seller side of your business. All right, so there's the basics, but let's get into 2.0, get a little more tactical. So as I was going in calling, again, I've set 15 listing appointments in 15 days. And I haven't even called today. So hopefully today is another. I've set 4 in one day. And so let's hope we go for 5 today, right? But after this podcast, I've got a few things to do, and I'm going to prospect again today. And what I've realized is, going through these databases and going through this database that we segmented, is that there is gold in the old. I'm going to say it again. There is gold in the old. What do I mean by that? The people I had the most luck with are the ones that I knew were homeowners. They raised their hand a long time ago, and we didn't follow up properly. Because guess what? You think the buyer nurture game is long? The seller nurture game is way, way longer if you do it this way. So, like, as an example, I've set appointments with people that hadn't done any activity on our website in over 450 days. But I knew they were a homeowner. and they had taken some sort of action 450 days ago about their home value, CMA request, a cash offer, something to that effect through these systems that we've set up. And so instead of just waiting for them to act again, what if I were to reach out proactively? So I did. And I started with the old ones first. And what I found was that the older ones are actually better leads because they had time to incubate. They had considered selling their home. They didn't pull the trigger for one reason or another, but they're still open-minded to the possibility because enough time had gone by where whatever got in the way of them actually selling their home is no longer top of mind for them. So they're way more open to a conversation. So when I was going through this, it's really important. Again, I'm going to be very detailed here, guys. As I'm calling through these leads, the one and done doesn't work. How many agents just call a lead one time and say, "Oh, that lead that's a bad lead," and they didn't call. Number one, you got to call, text, and email. If you call and they don't answer, leave a voicemail. Send a text message that is strategically designed with an open-ended question to get a response, and send an email with the same way. So that's day one. And I went through and I called 50 people, and that's the method that I did. Crazy enough, I did set one appointment on the first call, but the majority of them didn't answer, didn't reply to the text. The overwhelming majority. And so someone may look at that and say, well, those are bad leads. They didn't respond. Move on to the next one. What did I do? I went back on day two, called the same people, sent another text, a 2.0 day two version of a text with an open-ended question. It started off with, so let's say that someone's asking about a cash offer. So here's an example of the text. Hey, blank, you reached out a while ago. Did you ever end up selling your home? I know it's a long shot, but if a buyer was willing to pay over market value, would you be open to having a conversation? Question. Let's say they ghost me. What if question number two on day two is, I only ask because we have a overwhelming amount of buyers right now that are looking for properties in your neighborhood. Right? Like you got to keep the conversation going. Here's my actual script. Sorry. So it says I was only asking because there are several buyers looking and very little homes for sale. If you can get over market value, would you be open to having a conversation? And something magical happened. On day two, after I showed consistency, way more people answered. And if they didn't answer, way more people responded to the text. And then I got to nurture and have the conversations. So again, day one, call, text, and email. Day two, call, text, and email. Guess what you do on day three? You call, you text, and you email. Not many of these made it to day three, but the ones that did either told me, leave me alone, which is fine. Now I know who to focus on, or we had a conversation and they're in a nurture stage or I set an appointment. So instead of discounting the lead because they didn't respond, quit labeling the people, quit labeling the leads before you have a conversation, and think strategically and creatively, how can I have more conversations with these leads so that I can qualify them? Quit putting a label on these people we haven't even spoke with. So if you do that with all of your old leads, you will have way more conversations. And yes, you'll get told no more, but you'll also get told yes more. And so instead of just making 1,000 dials to 1,000 people one time, what if you had 100 people and you called, text, and emailed them 3 days in a row? Which would be more effective? Just throwing a shotgun approach out there and throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and hoping something sticks? Or you're going to have the sniper approach. You're going to call people that you know own a home, call people that you know requested some sort of action on their home, a cash offer, seller, CMA, home value, and you also did the research to know they still own their home. And do that 3 days in a row. I promise you'll have way better results. So let's talk about the text messages. I read through a couple of the scripts that I have here in the text messages, but to make it simple, or like we use Follow Up Boss. So I just created it as a text template, and I just sent the template to all these people at once. Like I didn't mass text, I did it one by one, right? But after I called, I would just send the text template. So it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's so important that you send the right text messaging. I see too many agents trying to over explain who they are, trying to over explain why they're reaching out. They don't even end the text with a conversation. If you're a team leader listening, set your team up for success and say, this is the template that you send. Don't tweak it, don't change it because it works. If we leave, I love you agents, but if we leave you up to coming up with your own messaging, it's not always the best. And so just this proven dialogue and proven language is super important. The text messages have to have a question because the whole goal of the text is to get the conversation started. All right. We talked about text message. We talked about call, text, email. What about a home value system? So we use Fellow for this. It's not perfect, but it's something, right? There's no Zestimate, any of that stuff that's ever perfect, right? So what if you go through these leads and you actually do a little research yourself and see, is their home value actually accurate? See, what happens in our area is a lot of these homes that are in rural areas don't actually get a value calculated. And so this person raised their hand, went through this whole process, filled out this form to request the value of your home, and they didn't get any value whatsoever because the system could not the algorithm could not find the value. How many of your leads, if you have a system like Fellow right now, have a value that is inaccurate or invaluable, meaning it just has a zero or it's just not even close to accurate? I'd be willing to bet it's a lot. So what if you actually went through those and you did a little bit of research as an educated real estate agent and you made sure that the value they requested is actually accurate? Is it actually updated? And what about a third level? What if the homeowner actually knew what the value was because you send it to them via email? Maybe you send it to them via text message. Maybe you went above and beyond, and maybe you printed it out and you put it in a pretty little package and put a pretty little bow on it and dropped it by their house with a cool little handwritten note. These are just things to think outside the box to get more appointments, to be that value to these homeowners that will eventually become sellers. So there's another cool strategy that I use with that. We call it our easy CMA process. And so we've developed a whole process around this, but essentially what it is we know, again, who are the homeowners, what is their address. We do a quick CMA. When I say quick, like it's not in depth, 38 pages long. It's a quick, rough estimate of the value. We package it up. We do a Loom video. Going over the value. We explain it to them, and it's the scripting is something to the effect of, we just think it's really, really important that you stay up to date with where you are in the investment of your home. We understand that buying a home is one of the largest investments of your lifetime, and we want to do our job as your real estate agent to make sure you know where you stand in that investment. Just like a good stockbroker, just like a good investment portfolio manager, we keep you up to date with what your retirement accounts look like. We want to keep you up to date with what your investment in your home looks like. And then you use that language, you go through it via Loom. So you don't send and pray. You get to explain the value. You get to explain the highlights, explain the things that maybe aren't so attractive about the CMA so they don't form their own opinion. I think it's important to remember. I talk about my communication circle a lot in the people that I coach. And only 7% of how people receive communication is the words that you say. And so if you send it in an email and you send it as a PDF, there's a 93% chance they're going to misinterpret the message you intended to say. 38% is the tonality in your voice. So that's why phone calls are better than emails for sales, right? Is because you can actually say your tone. You can change the tone in your voice to make a better point so people can hear the message you intend to deliver. And 55% is body language. And so what do you get when you do a Loom CMA versus a PDF CMA? You get 100% chance they receive the communication correctly because you get to your body language because you're on Loom. You get your tonality because they can hear your voice, and they get to read what you wrote, right? And so it's so important, that little tip will make a big difference. And then you explain it to them, and then you send it to them via email and send it to them via text. And then it's simple. You call them for the next 3 days if you need to with a "did you get" call. And you have a conversation not about selling their home, but around the value of their home. And sometimes that conversation leads to, we are thinking about selling soon. Provide that value up front. Makes a world of difference. Let's talk about tiers of seller leads. So we talked about getting seller leads. Here's something that we broke down in our database. So again, we use Fellow for this, but it is cash offer / seller lead. So people will request a cash offer through the messaging here. People will request, hey, I want to sell my home. Call me back. Those are the hand raisers. Hey, pick me. Hey, pick me. Right. Those are the people that we need to be very, very urgent with. There's CMA request. Hey, I'm curious, not just a home value, but I want to give you more information to get a more accurate value. Can you give me a CMA? There's expireds and FSBOs, and then there's home value leads. So I think it's important you understand the different tiers of leads, just like buyer leads. Facebook lead is not the same as a call a Zillow Flex lead, right? We don't have Zillow Flex, but you guys get the point, right? Those are different tiers of leads. What if you break your tiers of leads of seller leads down too, so you can make sure you have a message to market match, you have the right conversation, the right scripting, the right messaging, the right follow-up strategy based upon how they requested the information. Super important. I think it's also important to note when you're having these conversations, a lot of these conversations that I personally went through, they don't start off the greatest. What do I mean by that? They're not saying jumping for joy, thanks for calling, I'm ready to sell tomorrow. There's some objections. There's some sales skepticism that you have to overcome. So make sure you're skilled and prepared to do that. But one of the things I keep in mind is that I don't believe what people say. I believe what they do. I don't believe what people say. I believe what they do. You see, we've all heard that actions speak louder than words. So why are we letting the sellers, the homeowners, the leads outscript us by telling us things like, oh, we're just looking. Oh, we didn't request a home value. Oh, I'm not interested in selling. Whatever those objections may be, maybe they're legitimate, but maybe it's just a sales skepticism that we have to overcome. And so be prepared to overcome that. Some of these appointments, I went through 6 and 7 no's before I got a yes on the same phone call. Right. So I don't want to like paint the picture that these are just all home runs. There's some skill involved. There's some grit, some tenacity that you have to have in this industry, especially when you're going to meet with sellers. So you have to be able to overcome those things. But if you're able to meet. I'll tell you a quick story. I just had a conversation of a listing appointment that I met this week. He told me no like 6 times on the phone. Said, I'm not interested in selling. Not anytime soon. I don't want to waste your time. No need for you to come out. I'm going through a divorce. He just gave me objection after objection after objection. And I just stayed in the box, had the tough conversation. I was just very pleasantly persistent. I set the appointment. Well, guess what happened when I met with him the next day? He signed the listing contract in person, but he wasn't ready. I don't believe what people say. I believe what they do. And so again, like we have false perception on leads, we also have a false perception on appointments. We have a false perception on, well, they said they're not ready. Did they say they're not ready because they're not ready? Or did they say they're not ready because they don't trust you yet enough, or they don't see the value you could bring, or you haven't done a good enough job uncovering that pain or that pleasure that they're working away from or looking to go find, right? And it's just about providing value. Again, just to recap here, 1 year or older, gold in seller leads. If they requested some sort of value a year ago and they still own their home, those are where your great conversations are hidden. It's not the one that came in 2 weeks ago and they're already still mad at their previous real estate agent. Sure, can you overcome those? Absolutely. But they probably need some time to cool off before they're ready. These people they still own their home. They requested a value for a reason. We just need to unpack that now that whatever that pain was that changed their mind is gone. Consistency of messaging is crucial. You have to do the 3 days in a row. The one and done does not work. Consistency of messaging works amazing in this strategy. Another tip, assume the sale in every single call. Assume the sale. Assume that every person you call wants to meet with you to sell your home. Instead of how many agents wait on this client to set the appointment? Stop waiting on the client to set the appointment. You set the appointment for the client. You drive the bus. You be the leader they need in this marketplace. Make sure you have scripts. have scripts for each different lead source to make sure you're having the right scripts, the right text messaging. It's just subtle tweaks. It's a very similar framework, but just subtle tweaks. Again, so you're meeting them where they are. And if you're a team leader, your broker owner, give those resources to your team so that they can use that and they have that value. And last but not least, don't sleep on email marketing. Email marketing is huge. And there's if you segment your database right, you provide enough value, you have a marketing machine on the background, you can use email marketing to these homeowners to create more hand raisers, which gives you more leads to call. So again, guys, I just wanted to share this, get this off my chest. This is something that I'm really proud of what our team has accomplished. Again, we're at like almost 60 appointments in the first 14 or 15 days. And we are on our way to 200. We are committed. We're going to make it happen. I'm committed to getting 30 appointments in 30 days. Super excited to share that journey with you guys. And I hope this was helpful. As always, we do this show to give back. So if you found value in this episode, please share it with a friend. Bring them to this movement, bring them to this podcast. We have some very, very special guests coming up soon that I know you guys will want to hear. That'll give you some tactical stuff that anyone can implement to help you grow your business. That's what we're here for, to contribute. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.